Hello class, welcome back for week 3. And this week we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics in sociology, gender and sexuality. And let's start off just by talking about the assignments, and we'll kind of go into some more in-depth information. So this week I want you to read chapters 5 and 8 in New World Reader, chapter 12 in OpenStax, and of course there are some fantastic TED Talks in Moodle this week. I look forward to hearing about what you think about some of those videos. Again, I want to encourage you all to remain open-minded. Some of these topics are a little different and unique, and I hope that you will embrace it with thinking like a sociologist first, and trying to understand it from a different perspective. As usual, your forum. First response due Thursday at midnight, your 2 peer responses Sunday at midnight, top learning points. Everybody's been doing really great on those, so thanks for submitting them and taking the time. And then this week you will complete a paper about thinking like a sociologist. And if you want to know what I'm talking about when I say think like a sociologist, there is an article called How to Think Like a Sociologist in Moodle. I want you to read that first. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pick a movie, a TV sitcom, something that you can watch, and there are some examples in the syllabus. So for example, a lot of people in the past have watched Gran Torino, Gangs New York, America History X, Milk, Last of the Mohicans, Crash, which is my favorite, Boys in the Hood, Fast Food Nation, Hotel Rwanda, just to name a few. In addition, people have really liked Blackish or Modern Family for this assignment. So you don't have to stick to any of those. You can use something else. Just make sure that it fits into the assignment. So after you read How to Think Like a Sociologist, after you watch a movie of your choice, I want you to look in the syllabus, and there are 4 questions. And I want you to go ahead and answer those 4 questions. Again, you want to do it in MLA format, so 1-inch margins, double-spaced. It does not need to be an essay format, which means you can literally number the question, write the question, and answer it. I do expect you all to have at least 1 sociology term. And whatever source you're using, whether it's a TV show or a movie, that also needs to be on your Works Cited page. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm always happy to help. And then the final example I think is going to be really fun. We're going to be talking about gender. And so this week you're going to do a gender roles reflection. This is going to be a little bit different, and it's literally a 1-page reflection about an ad. It could be a magazine ad, it could be a billboard, it could be a TV commercial, an ad that you decide to pick and process it out about how it relates to gender. You want to clearly state if the ad actually reinforces or challenges traditional gender roles, and what impact it maybe has on a specific individual or group of individuals. Whatever you submit to me, I want to see the ad that you're using. So whether it's a website or a YouTube video, or you copy it and scan it and send it to me, just make sure you include the ad with your reflection. It's a 1-page reflection about what you notice in the ad, how does it relate to gender, and maybe what does it say, what message does it convey to society or a group of people or an individual. So have fun with that. I hope you'll really, really like it. Okay, so we're going to start thinking like a sociologist, and I know that the information I have up here about suicide and that suicide is something that is a very sensitive topic, but I feel this exercise might help talk about how sociologists think. So in 2013, you could see there that this is the recorded number of suicides based on the American Association of Suicidology. In that, there are some groups of people and even to their gender that have higher or lower rates. So if I tell you that white males have the highest rate, but yet black females have the lowest rate of suicide, what assumptions or what thoughts or what reasons or rationale would you think about as to why those statistics are there? So in class when we do this, some students may say, well, white males are supposed to be, the leaders in the household and the breadwinners, and there could be a lot of stress on them. And in addition, there is a stereotype that men, shouldn't cry or shouldn't show emotion. And so perhaps white males carry a burden that they can't talk about. On the flip side, what I've heard from students in class is that Black females tend to be the head of household, and then sometimes are taking care of their children or their grandparents, or taking care of aunts and uncles. So it's a very family-oriented culture. And in some ways, Black females maybe are less likely to commit suicide because they understand that the family is counting on them. So with this, and then there's the states here. Montana has the highest rates. New Jersey has the lowest rates. You could think about why might that be. And it could be the geography. It could be one's rural, one's suburban, or more of a city. So you can kind of start to see that these are the same thoughts that sociologists have. What sociologists then do is to go find data that backs up what their assumptions or some of the rationales may be. Sociologists use the scientific method, so everything that they do is research-based, evidence-based, but they have to start somewhere. They want to find the patterns, and in some cases you look for the stereotypes in society, just to kind of get you a basis to start thinking about where to go with the research and the data. So I hope that helped give you a quick little exercise. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about sexuality and gender. I find this topic extremely fascinating. Here we just kind of talk about what's the difference between sex, gender, and sexual orientation. Gender is really your perception of, what your gender is. Sexual orientation is the type of who you like. So you may be heterosexual, which means opposite sex, homosexual, which is within the same sex, bisexuality, or asexuality, where some people believe that they're not sexual at all. So, sex really does refer to physical and physiological differences. And this could be your primary sex characteristics or your secondary characteristics. So we know that a lot of times in our society, we believe that there are very traditional gender roles, but there's also a very traditional sense of a relationship and who should be in those relationships. We are in America, like a lot of first world countries, a heteronormative society, meaning that we assume that people are sexually oriented, is biologically determined, and it doesn't change. We also assume that our society is heterosexual. So if somebody says, that they're getting married, you automatically assume that they're getting married to a member of the opposite sex. Or a lot of times in commercials, you'll see a man and a woman, and that is traditional. That is what we consider the norm, and therefore a lot of our media and a lot of our thoughts are based off of that. Because of the heteronormative society, then based on our gender, people fall into specific and complementary roles. So you may think, well, the man's the breadwinner and the woman takes care of the house and the children, or men are really good at business and tend to have more roles in that sector. The women tend to be more teachers and nurses. In a lot of ways in our society, though of course people are challenging this every day in every way, these roles are considered rigid and not so much fluid. And so, but of course we know, right? And I'm sure you all can think of examples of how certain people have gone against this, that it works. A woman could be physically strong and work at a construction site, and a man could be physically beautiful and be a model. And so it's definitely a lot of conflict where we want society to change and to not box people in, but yet we seem to challenge and punish people who fall outside of the box and are considered non-traditional. So a little bit more about gender roles. It's really our society's idea of how men and women are supposed to not only look, but how they should behave, and how they should behave in agreement with each other. So again, those complementary roles. these roles are really based on our norms and our standards and are created by our society. You could go to, somewhere in Africa and you could see a very different role, different gender roles. So they are truly cultural based. And we know that masculinity is usually associated with strength and aggression and dominance, which we know not all men fall in that category. And on the flip side, femininity, we talk about passivity, nurturing, and being subordinate, which again, we know is not always the case and does not happen for every single person. And really and truly, we all are all blended, have blended gender roles. But the other thing I do want to say is that really learning these roles start at birth. Whether we put the pink hat or the blue hat on the child and so on and so forth with toys. In fact, think of a toy store and you have a fun forum post this week about exploring either a virtual toy store or going into a toy store to see what is out there and what the toys are maybe saying to our children. So again, I really enjoy talking about this topic, and I know that you all have your own perspectives and opinions. I look forward to reading them in your papers and in your forums. Just another little thing is that after the gender roles, there is some gender stratification. And again, this can lead to groups of people who have unequal access, literally based on their gender. And this really can be that there's a division of labor and that gender roles are tied to that. So just like we talked about, well, women are traditionally nursing, and if you go to the Bureau of Labor, you could look up and see what professions are the highest for women and what professions are the highest in men, and you could probably process out that there is a division of labor here in the United States, even though we are forward thinking. In a lot of ways, societies really do classify work by gender, and it happens in all societies. It's called a cultural universal. So it's not just that our country does it, it does happen across the entire world, but men do vastly outnumber women in authoritative and powerful and high earning jobs. And you have to think about how does our society play into that, and how does our culture really reinforce that, even if we don't want it to happen. This may come as no surprise to some people. This has been talked about a lot, that even today, women traditionally make only 77 cents. I think the newest one might be 79 cents for every dollar by her male counterpart. And you have to wonder if somebody with the same credentials, the same education, is getting paid less for a specific job. Then you have to try to figure out why is that, and why is the culture supporting this? The other thing I will say is that if there are women of color, African Americans, Native Americans, Asians, and Latino, they make by far less than their male counterparts too. So not only does gender play into it, but if you add race, then that makes it, even compounds the issue. And then on the same thing, it is interesting to know that women still do the majority of the housework, even though we know that women diversify their labor now and that more women are working in the workforce and actually have earned more degrees than men in the last couple of years. But yet they are still tied, or there's still that idea or that cultural societal norm that they still have to take care of the house and the children. By our definition of minority groups, which means people who don't have all the power, women are still considered a minority group in the United States. So a lot of information to think about and process. I hope you enjoy the TED Talks this week. I look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you all next Monday when we talk about social inequality. Thank you.